Welcome, it's SVPod. Stanford Steve is in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, where, as the saying goes, big man, they signed up for 60. Both sides, I mean, every cliche there is about big-time college football, SEC football, the deep end in the SEC, what it looks like, Kirby, Nick handing the baton to Kalen DeBoer, game day, Miss Terry, the whole bit in the morning leading into the evening. You're there, brother. Everybody punted at the end of the first quarter, and then I was trying to figure out how I was going to explain to my sons who went to bed at 28-0. Fellas, sit down. Georgia won because they took the lead. I'll stop talking. Go.
I hate being the guy that's speechless, Scott, but seriously, in this whole weekend, in what built up for the idea of game day coming with Coach Saban here and that whole entity, I gotta push that off because I'm still taking a deep breath after what I just saw. And you touched on it. The stadium pregame is an absolute buzzsaw. Walking around the field, nothing but NFL scouts. And I always try and go down, see quarterbacks throw, tight ends catching the rock, DBs. But I always, when I'm at Alabama, I always go down and see my man Tyler Booker because he's New Haven, Connecticut, man. And that's my man. He ended up going to IMG, and he still puts New Haven, Connecticut. And I go back to last year in the SEC championship when I see him come out of the tunnel against Georgia when it's a game that Alabama has to have. And he leads the team out, and he just screams out, "They ain't cut like us." And I lost it. And so I go right back down there. He makes eye contact with me. I look at him, and he says it right to me. And I'm before, like I'm in it. It's an hour before kickoff. And everything in this stadium. And the thing that really got me was last week being in Tennessee's hotel, everybody asked you, right, what's your favorite place? And you and I, we talked about this. It's always Baton Rouge, Louisiana is in its own tier. Y'all can have
BR is pretty
your
hard to top.
arguments.
BR is pretty hard to top.
But Alabama people like all week, and then Georgia, a lot of Georgia people here. Like they traveled out of their minds. They knew how much fun this game is. But Tuscaloosa, man, the idea of what it's become, and it had everything going in. And then you're in it, and it's an absolute buzzsaw. I mean, Jalen's going, the defense is going, everything out of Athens is saying, we want to attack that secondary. We want to make them tackle. It's 30-7. I get invited up to the founder. No.
You get into the schnapps? You get into the schnapps tonight? Into the tipsy Welshman?
Some people call it Millionaire Row, but it's the Founders Club, and it's that new level of suites in Alabama. And I walk through there, and I'm looking at my sneakers, and I'm like, I got too dirty of sneakers to be in here. And the whole entity is something that I've never seen. And all of a sudden, it's 30-15. And it's a hush. And then it starts going and going. And you see that, yeah.
Hold that thought for just a second. Because here's what was legitimately amazing to me about that football game. And I'll give him the nod because he sends me a text. Barnwell said, I swear that right after Georgia scored to take the lead, I thought to myself, well, if there were ever a time momentum is real.
Who was that?
It's
Barn
right now.
Dogs watching
because
college football?
Barnwell. Well, he loves college football, but he's the guy among many that poo-poo the notion of momentum. And I said to him, the first quarter, if you watched and don't believe momentum's a thing, I don't know what to tell you because the Crimson, the guys in the Crimson uniforms had confidence, belief, and momentum on their side, and Georgia was fighting uphill and looked like they were going to let go of the rope. the exact photo opposite, the photo negative in the fourth quarter. Beck and Georgia, now they've got the grease hot, and Georgia and Bama's hanging on for dear life. Whatever you want to call it. Confidence, momentum, some combination of the two. I felt like it was on display, and at what point, whether it's on Millionaires Row, Founders Row, on the field, in the booth, wherever, at what point, Steve, did you look at the scoreboard, the stadium, and think to yourself, Georgia might win this football game? At what point?
Before you got to go win it, you got to stay in it. And I thought, honestly, the second quarter was huge. They stayed in it. And like I said, 30-7, all of a sudden, boom, 30-15. It's like, okay, math, I'm the worst math person there is. That's a two-possession game. And you felt it. You're looking at Kirby on the sidelines. He got those Bama bangs out the visor. He's sweating like I've never seen him before. And I knew their plan. They wanted to keep the pressure on the Alabama secondary because they weren't tested yet. And when you watch the game plan from Georgia from the jump, I think they had 2 rushes before they scored a touchdown. Like, they came out knowing that they wanted 15 to have the ball in his hands. He was going to throw it, and that's what they were going to do to beat Alabama. And they get there, and like I said, 30-15, okay, pressure's on Bama now to make it 3 possessions. And you're going, and then all of a sudden 15 is getting more comfortable. They're spreading everything. Nobody's even in the backfield. They have all the hype before the season. They got 3 tight ends, all this. It's spread, and they let 15 do his thing. And it was incredible to see. You said momentum. Barnwell brought up momentum. In that stadium, and you've been there, how crazy it could get. And then it just goes to a lull. And it's, holy crap, Bama's on their heels. And they were. And they lost the lead. It was unbelievable.
You could feel it. And it reminded me so much of that epic night in Baton Rouge.
Yeldon.
Where
saw AJ tonight on the sidelines.
To Yeldon. and there's that one little tiny in Tiger Stadium, that one little tiny section in crimson cheering, and you saw it tonight, that one little Georgia section's cheering. But then, Steve, they got to be happy for 8.6 seconds. And then, I mean, I loved that Milroe, who was 18-19 at the start when it's 28-0, and they're just a battering ram both through the air and on the ground. I loved that they said, okay, so it's a Rocky fight. Well, then we're going to throw a haymaker right back at you. And on a night where Jeremiah Smith of Ohio State made a couple of the sickest catches you'll see, he said there's no such thing as a 50-50 ball, and there's not. On the night that freshman did that, Ryan Williams, who everybody is just so intent on saying he's 17. I don't give a shit if he's 50 or 12 or whatever he is. He's unbelievable. The play he makes to somehow pirouette and spin and then hit an acceleration from like the 25 to the 20. I saw someone point that out on Twitter, and I'm like, yeah, he's got a gear there that he hits quick. And then Bama's right back on top, and then they get the 2. And as Georgia was going down the field, I thought for certain they were going to score. And you know how everybody wants, Kirby's got to go for 2. Kirby's got to go for 2. I'm thinking the hell he does, because Kirby's been paying attention, and he knows we've got them on their heels. Outside of one big play, they haven't done shit for 2 hours. If they score, and we'll never know because the great pick there to end it, I'm convinced they kick an extra point because they think at that point they're better. Right now, in this last quarter of football, we're better than them. And I don't know. We'll never know, but I know this. It's funny. I said to my wife, she's SEC gal, loves college football. We're watching. I said, I guess the one thing that Georgia's got on its side is they still got 37 minutes left. And she's like, to lose by 100. I'm like, no, they've got enough time. They have enough time. And Georgia's built different. And this is where you can eye roll all you want. A lesser team gets destroyed tonight. destroyed. And it's hard to explain that atmosphere, but that place will suffocate. You would quit. You would tap out and beg for a running clock. And they dug in their heels and said, nah, you're going to have to kill us 10 times. We're not tapping out. And I admire that so much about Kirby's group.
Your
That's
favorite
culture.
word.
How often do we talk about it? That's culture.
That's it.
Staying in the fight,
That's it.
having the dogs, both in nickname and in makeup, to punch back and take a lead. And then all the credit in the world to Bama for hitting that play to an incredibly talented 17-year-old in Ryan Williams, who made that. It was when he made that batting the ball around catch. That was when it was still just kind of a fun little look how isn't that cool? And then it turned into an entirely different thing. You've been to a lot of them, man. This is what you do. But nights like tonight are the ones you're shaking your head. But I mean, you just all you can do.
And Scott,
right?
I get the people that haven't experienced the SEC, right? They don't understand until they go there and see it. But tonight, it was all SEC. That's all you had. You had the biggest dogs in the fight from the years previous. They knew what they were getting into. Walking around town, stopping at a spot. Oh, Kentucky's down 17-13. They got the ball. What can they do? All these Georgia people are fired up when they see Kentucky win. They're like, you know what? Feel good. Feel good. Feel a lot better about ourselves, right? Kentucky's the whole thing. I go out to dinner Thursday night. Reese and I are talking. We're going through numbers, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going back and watching this Kentucky-Georgia game because I got to get a better feel. And I'm sure we'll get to it as we backtrack on the day. The thing that stuck out to me, how good Brad White and Kentucky and Stoops' game plan was for Georgia, knowing that was their Super Bowl, knowing what they looked like against South Carolina. They gave it all. And Georgia didn't score touchdowns, scored one, and they got there out of a win. So that narrative, we talked about it a little bit when we were, traveling together. The idea of what Alabama looked like in Madison, what Georgia looked like in Lexington. You had everything you wanted as Kirby Smart. You got guys back healthy. But a couple things there. And you said it. And I just, when you're here in an SEC world, stay in the fight. You know you got guys. Exactly. Very hard to do. In this, it's hard to do. I hate to use these cliches that are whatever kind of terms. They got absolutely ambushed. Absolutely ambushed at the beginning. And to be able to come out and get to the half and recalibrate and know you got a kid at quarterback that could get you back in the game. They do that. They take the lead. But then Alabama, one play. And I'm doing the math because there's two things I was so sick and tired of, and you touched on one, was Ryan Williams is 17 years old. But the other one was Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey. Georgia really misses him. Yeah, no shit, right? They're both NFL guys. And so I dug in on Georgia's third downs. Right. Last 2 years, they were top 5 in third down conversion rates because of those two guys. This year, without him, still figuring out. And I will add, and this was Reese's point, they did play Clemson and Kentucky. Those are really good defenses. And they were 71st in the country in third down conversion rates. And I said, give them a little bit. They got a bye week, the whole thing, right? But Ryan Williams, he's 17 years old, right? Born in 2007. That was the last time Alabama was a home dog. Think about, want to be old? You're older than me, but I feel older than you after being here for that game and knowing what this whole weekend was about. But 17 years, man. 17 years since they had this chance to re-up themselves and a new regime coming in. Nothing could be better with Coach Saban and DeBoer. It was really a sight to see. And how many times do we go to games and we sit there or we follow games and we're like, I guess it didn't live up to the hype? It's the complete opposite of that tonight. I still don't even know how to grasp it.
as advertised or better. I think you can leave a game with admiration for both sides. It's rare, but that happens tonight. I think you see the ability of Georgia to just eat punches. Eat punches
as a group,
that would have broken.
As a group, both sides.
Damn near
That's the whole thing. In that environment and seeing them just absorb it. Are they going to be able to come back? And you're from afar. Go ahead, please.
Yes. Yeah, no, just the fact that they ate those punches that would have had a corner throw in a towel, and instead they get off the mat and take the lead. And so at the end of it all, on a late September, by the next time we have a round of games, you'll flip the calendar to October. I think you can be you're pretty sure after tonight. Those are two teams that we'll continue to talk about. Georgia's schedule is interesting, man.
The road, Scott.
Interesting.
And talking to Georgia fans all day. This was one where you knew they were gonna give their best because of what they looked like, but they knew what's ahead. They still have to go to Austin. They still have to go to Oxford. They still get Knoxville to come to them.
Yep.
You don't know. I mean, Knoxville obviously took a hit.
And then, you know, and then Florida's one of those, it's a rivalry thing. You never know. A Georgia Tech game, you never know. I mean, look, this was one.
But then
it looked like early you were ready to just flip the page. Then it's like, holy shit, we're going to steal it. And now you're like, all right, well, we lost, but probably learn some positives on yourself. I don't know. It's the playoffs going to take all the juice out of the regular season. Is that right?
That was the great thing, though, being around these two fan bases.
I think we could shovel dirt on that narrative. Go ahead.
When these two teams play, whether it's in November, December, January, or September, it was the first time that they had been here, with fans, and Georgia.
Yep.
I hate litmus tests, but we knew the capability of these teams, and I thought they both exceeded it. I really do.
What do I always say about rivalries? You have to have taken something from me, or I have to have taken something from you that matters. That's what makes a rivalry.
No,
it can't just be we hate you. It has to be respect-based. I've won games that mattered to you, that kept you from doing something, and you've done the same to me. That's what makes rivalries. The respect that Kirby and Nick had for one another was evident, and you heard it and saw it in those moments, pre and post, like titles. Nick's like, you kicked our ass in the last remember when they beat him? I mean, and now obviously it's the DeBoer regime, and if you have a regime 4 games in, he's the new coach, but it's a hell of a night across the board. Hell of a morning down there as well. Just cool to see all of it. And then it's just Dixieland delight and all that stuff. What a night. We could keep going.
I see that.
I do have copious notes.
Linen
but if you have anything, any other, it's a button down, Steve. I was at a function today. I was in a corn maze.
What time?
At Lyman Orchards.
What time?
Connecticut.
What time? How long?
Games were being played. It was.
Just say long. Just say long.
I will say we reached a halfway point.
Okay. All right. Fine.
I don't know. It was a while, and we reached what was called the halfway point, and there was like an emergency exit. And I was like, "Let's take the exit."
Is there a chopper over here?
Let's exit stage, whatever we are, in the middle of this Snoopy corn maze in whatever town Lyman. But the good news is we have a gross of donut holes. Now we have that today. By Monday, when I see you, what will we have? You might not get. They might not make it to Monday, but we were taping things. We were keeping tabs on things, and I guess it's always such just a Pollock, right? The Jackson Pollock. It's a painter. It's just stuff everywhere on the wall. That's kind of what this feels like at the end of the day. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Where do we start? Do we go back to the noon window?
I missed Oklahoma Auburn, the ending.
Well, that's number one. This week's is a how do you answer situation. A week ago, we're talking to you. You're in Norman, and I wouldn't call that a season ender. It's way too early for your season to be ended, but it could be derailed. Michael Hawkins Jr. didn't throw the ball for a lot, but had a touchdown run. The wheels late leads to the touchdown, and then an incredible effort for a 2-point conversion puts them up 3. They add a late field goal. And our friends down on the plains, Steve, not the most patient bunch. It'll be interesting to see what they decide they're doing down there. But OU fueled by Hawkins. What year is that guy? Freshman.
I will say Auburn started the season 5 straight home games. They're 2-3.
Yeah. War Eagle gonna have to hit the road. The USC Wisconsin was in the 3:30 window. Steve,
Andy North going out west, up 21-10 when I started walking into the stadium. What happened?
I don't give it. We really need to discuss this, Steve. What happened? I'll tell you what happened, Steve. What happened is a bad beat. What happened is 28 second half points to none. What happened is a pick 6 late. What happened is a big play to get inside the 20 back door. It's not even the back door. You're supposed to cover. You were the right side.
It's the Air Badger offense. Give me a touchdown.
No touchdowns, Steve. 0 touchdowns. They went for a 4th and goal from the 1 where they went shotgun. What are you doing? You're Wisconsin. Just line them up from left tackle to right tackle, 380-pound guys from Appleton, and you run into the end zone. No. Let's get stuffed. Jesus. That's what happened. I'm disgusted. I told Big Cat, I said, I know they're just kids, and I know you're just sad. But that team is dead to me.
I got fired from Winners.
He shot himself. He killed himself.
Guessing it was my
you did. I tried to switch it up. You're back.
Fault.
You're
I'm
back.
just going to guess. Take a whim here. Wisconsin was on Winners.
Yeah, they're on Winners, Steve. They're on Winners. They didn't get there.
But I'm going to take another guess.
They did not get there.
Go ahead.
But wait. Let's just ignore the Winners bit.
Okay.
And let's acknowledge bounce back. OU bounce back. Let's say to USC. You lose at Michigan. You're down 2 scores at home. You take a deep breath and you're like, look, we're fine. And they were 28-0 in the second half, and they get a big win that, again, you don't want to string L's together at this stage of the season. They got Penn State coming out to their place. So give credit to them. That's a good bounce back situation from USC. Lincoln's guys, look, they were better. They didn't need to be 18 points better because they kind of weren't.
I got to go back and watch the tape again because I left to go to the stadium. It was 21-10. Wisconsin was rolling. Had brutal memories of Wisconsin in that white and red pants and being in the Rose Bowl. Regardless, I might be all the way in on Miller Moss after what I saw him do against Michigan. I'm going to go back and watch the tape, and we could touch on it at the end of Tuesday's pod. But this kid, what's the there's a hotel. Moxie?
30 of 45, 3 tuds today. Jacoby Lane. Moxie. Yeah, there you go. Moxie's good.
Moxie?
Jacoby Lane's the guy. Yeah. That's the guy that Cliff Kingsbury told me before the season started. Moxie. Jacoby Lane's got Moxie. Miller Moss has got Moxie. SC was had more Moxie than I did at the end of that one. That was a tough one. All right, let's go back to noon because I want to hit on something that by way of talking about Kentucky.
Give me that.
Watching them against Georgia. They hold Ole Miss to 353 yards of offense. 353. Now, there were a bunch of areas across the country where you had some weather impacts and what have you. By the way, we joke around all the time about the boys from Boone. Our buddy Luke Combs, man, shout to and that particular part in the Appalachians, man, heart goes out to folks there. we got friends that had floods come into their house. You know what we went through with a fire. Obviously, fire is different than a flood, but when your house gets wrecked, man, I've been through it, and sincerely, I don't know what to say to you other than it will get better. It's just going to take a while. It will get better. You just have to give yourself a little grace and not try to fix it in a week. All right? Take it from somebody that's lived it. Just take a deep breath. Let your insurance do what your insurance does. So I'm glad I thought of that by way of the weather impacting games. Who gives a shit given what happened across the country? But in watching Kentucky, their defense is really solid. You know what they do? When they arrive at the ball, you go down on the field, largely. That's not a lost art, but the teams that are great all tackle. And they did a great job of limiting Ole Miss's offense. And then a little bit they rolled the dice. They hit a huge fourth down conversion in the fourth quarter. I mean, like that's big Sam Cassell wheelbarrow style right there. And you got to hit it, and they did. And then they get a little lucky because a ball gets stripped going in. If Ole Miss gets it, they're still ahead 17-13. Do they probably win? I don't know. I'm going to say the odds are pretty high they do. Instead, they get it in the end zone. It goes right to a tight end, I believe. Yeah. And then a field goal is missed at the end, and Kentucky gets out of there with a win. That's a gigantic win that had Kentuckian winners didn't have them on the field, but I mean, I felt like sleepy nooner in the Grove, but still, that's not anything I had on the bingo card, like an outright.
Couple things here. Were you able to watch that end of the game live? So
no,
gotcha.
I'm following it like I was trying the Wi-Fi situation. You know what it is? You just play by play. You know what I mean?
7 to end the game. And there's time on the clock, and Lane decides to kick the field goal there. And if it's, I don't know, 4th and 4, maybe you go for it. And it ends, it's a long field goal, but I thought that's a big decision there because you have enough time. But
yeah, I mean,
Kentucky, like I said at the beginning, going back, not one person's going to say going into Alabama and Georgia, Kentucky's defensive game plan with Brad White and Stoops as the head coach was incredible against Georgia. And then all week I said, storylines, what do you want to talk about? I said every single one, first headline, I want to know how Ole Miss is going to react when they get punched in the face, because Kentucky's defense is going to punch their O-line in the face. And we saw it. Get a score, and then you know how it happens with those defenses. There's a big lull. There's a lull in how you got to stay in the fight. And Ole Miss was there. You mentioned the monster conversion that they had. And Kentucky's, I'll say, not ideally constructed from an offensive roster because they have really good receivers. Last year, they struggled with drops. This year, they bring in Vandegrift, and he's a battler. He played it. We touched a couple weeks ago against his former team. His team was all in on it. Yeah, but they got receivers. Right. Give them a chance to make a play, and boy, did they make plays. Brown and Key, those guys are really, really. I think they're NFL players. I really do. And to see what Kentucky is right now, and to have to look in the mirror, as good as you feel coming home from Oxford with a win against a top 10 team, you got 2 losses in games where if you got anything offensively, like you're in the mix. You're in the mix. But again, I don't want to take anything away. It was an awesome win.
Yeah, but
now Ole Miss.
No, there was that. More about now they got to bounce back. Another bounce-back team. Avery Johnson, 5 touchdowns responsible for 319 combined yards. That Big 12 is we'll keep acknowledging Reese. Might not be the deepest, but it's the widest. BYU goes to Baylor. They jump them, and they hang on for dear life. I looked at their schedule, Steve. It gets dodgy late, back-to-back roads at UCF and Utah, but they've not lost. And that's going to be, I have a feeling that's going to be a conference where not you and I so much, but we media, like, who do we like here? I think that baton's going to get passed around a lot. But I'm not ready to say anything because I want to own something more. It's like my biggest miss bad read of the week was UCF's laying 14 to Colorado. Colorado goes down there, and that place, they're ready to go to Church Street and get after it, baby. I think I have some numbers down. Write numbers down for that one. Other than they just dominated. UCF, they entered this game the leading rushing team in the nation, more than service academies. I thought they would run it and run it and run it. Well, they actually ran it okay. The problem was Shadur threw it and threw it and threw it, and they played from the lead, and just Vegas had the wrong favorite by a lot. UCF, they might be okay, but Colorado, they might have that last sequence late last week where they stole that win against Baylor. They might have totally gotten their minds right as a group, or maybe this is just one weekend. I don't know, but this is one weekend where I was dead wrong on that read of what I thought that game would look like. Colorado was great, and so now that's a 4-1 team, and there's just like in all directions in that conference moving forward. I'm like, well, I don't know. I thought Oklahoma State was good a couple weeks ago. Then they just lost to Utah and Kansas State. Now I'm like, well, I guess they're not. I don't know.
Yeah, it's brutal. I think about Utah, and everybody had said a monster game at the end of the year. They have to go to Orlando in the bounce house to play UCF. Now, all I'm looking at,
correct.
Give me undefeated Utah and undefeated BYU for an undefeated Holy War, because that get like you're more professional than me. You use the word dislike. I use the word hate. I don't give a shit what you say. That's some hate right there. If we can get that one.
Oh no, that's real hate, and that's November. That's early mid November.
Can I just say this about Colorado? They
please
overhauled again, and they obviously have more guys. And when I mean guys, they got some dudes. And talking to guys that have coached against them, the defense has more guys. But I will say this, and I was as high on Shador as anybody, and him combined with Travis, they're that good. They really are. You could point at all the other stuff, whatever I'm not saying you do. I'm saying the people that don't want to see them succeed, they're that good. So you got to face it.
Well, and I agree. And here's the thing about it: on Sunday football, you could have a great quarterback and a great receiver, and the other side can scheme it up to at least minimize it. Most college situations can't. They're just not good enough. Because in order to do that, you're going to have to be great up front to be able to pressure him, and you're going to have guys in your secondary that can stay with 12.
They also got a bunch of other guys too.
So I hear you.
Yeah.
Understood. But I mean, when push comes to shove, that's who he should be looking for. But after that Nebraska game, I'd be the first to tell you that I thought that this thing could get sideways in a hurry. And instead, and it looked like they're down double digits last week on their home field against Baylor.
Stay in the fight.
What'd they do? In the fight. Stayed in the fight. There you go. And they signed up for 60 and then some. And so they win that game, and then they go down and they
going back to that Nebraska game, Scott,
UCF.
They stayed in the fight there. That ended up, 28-10? That could have got real bad.
Yeah. They needed one more score. And they couldn't get that one score to make it to do what Georgia did tonight, where it got to the point where you're like, you didn't have to squint too hard to see a way that they could kind of grab that one. We've talked a ton about today because obviously where you are is massive. You're going next week to Berkeley, which is its own fun story because you went to Stanford. But the only reason you can go there is because the team that they're playing against is still unbeaten, and that's Miami. And the only reason Miami's still unbeaten is because of a call that was made on Friday night late. And I want to ask you, in real time,
I was watching both.
You got to
games
get up early. Are you watching live?
We might have been in.
Okay.
We might have been in pretty big on Rutgers. So we were making sure we got. I mean, you talk about a sweat. Like that's the thing about the Miami game. There's no way that Rutgers game should have ended the way it did, but we had to sweat that one out. I want to ask you because you're
well,
Big
go
Red
ahead.
Matt Garrett. I think he's the best at. Yeah,
he works at ESPN.
And
he's a producer.
Incredible at reviews, and he comes from the NFL. He's been an NFL guy forever, and reviews. He's unbelievable at it. If there was a 1A, you're the guy. And I ask you, when you're watching it live, what did you say?
Whatever they called on the field is what it has to be.
Not what they saw. What did you see live?
I thought it was incomplete. I didn't see a completion live, in part because they turned off the fucking lights as soon as the guy got up from Miami saying he had the ball. Like,
lot.
I didn't see a catch live. And then I heard them say, the game crew said, they're calling it a touchdown, and I see Virginia Tech waving, and I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Now I start watching. So I didn't see in real time a catch. It looked like someone had it, but I didn't know who. And then I did what everybody did, and I started watching. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. And I saw you put your finger up. What did you want to say?
And I'm still waiting it. Like the finished play, like the product. First thing I think of, Fail Mary. Second thing I think of, and I hate to do this, but it's honestly what I thought of. It's like a Saving Private Ryan scene where there's dead bodies all over, but you don't know which one is on the ground. And you need to know which one is on the ground. So when they're going to the side shot of the bodies on the ground, as they get there, you can't tell if he's on the ground, and then the ball flips. So,
well, and you need to know, is someone out of bounds touching the ball, which makes it dead.
They ruled it a touchdown. So in order for it to
I understand that.
For it to overturn, you need conclusive, whatever evidence, the whole thing, and
video evidence.
I can't believe it got overturned. You got it. That you think about flights home, Scott.
Totally,
like that. I mean, that's a season saver. A team that had some expectations. Totally underachieved. You get that spotlight on Friday night. It's exactly what you want. You're going to the top name of the conference, and you do everything. And
they played awesome. Awesome.
You got to answer those questions when you can't get the biggest question in the game answered. That's brutal.
We agree. I don't know if it was DeQuan Felton, I believe, right? Number 9. I don't know if he caught the ball, but I know they said he did. And then I know they said he didn't, but they didn't tell us why. And in that spot, if you're going to come out after everybody in America is standing there going, what is it? And you come out and go, no, we're going to change it. There needs to be an explanation, and I'm not saying you have to explain everything, but you have to say after further review, it was determined that the catch wasn't completed, it's incomplete. It was determined that the player was out of bounds while touching the ball and the play is dead. As a result, it's overturned incomplete. And all they said is, the call's reversed. Everyone goes crazy. Virginia Tech goes nuts. Eddie Royal works for the ACC network. He was tweeting a bunch of stuff, and like, I hope nobody gets. He better not get in trouble because all he did is say everything everyone thought. I take Virginia Tech out of it. Make it any other team in the ACC. Make it any other team in the country. If you're that team, you feel like you absolutely got robbed, and so naturally, it turns into rigged. ACC wants Miami. I don't know what happened, other than I think that it just seems like a refereeing incompetence because you've got to explain what happened. And they didn't. They just said it's different. And now it's different. Why? What's the reason why? And they didn't do that. But if they called incomplete, I would have said, nah, I don't see a catch. But they said it was a catch. So review's there to fix it when you can see something to tell you what it was that you didn't see. But we still didn't see it. And you got Private Ryan analysis.
You know what I'm saying, though?
Carnage and whatever else.
Okay.
1,000%. And so the call does nothing to diminish that Virginia Tech played their asses off, and I give them all the credit in the world for battling. It was said on the broadcast, and I agree. I mean, Cam Ward ducks the fourth down conversion where the receiver fell and made the catch is unbelievable. But then on the play where he sacked twice, but you got to sack him 4 times apparently to sack him. Breaks out of that
stiff arm from
and
88.
Somehow has the fortitude.
How about that? I mean,
yeah. I was just gonna ready to say. Let me look up and get this right because that's Riley Williams.
Athlete.
What positions he play? Just a tight end, best athlete on the field. Well, it's a tremendous find, and then it's a get off me, and then it's down to the one.
Great call,
Cam touchdown.
Great call too. Great call. It's a version of what Kansas City ran against the Eagles in the Super Bowl with the motion and the fake motion to get the coverage switched, and awesome. Oh God.
But if I'm a Virginia Tech fan, I wanted that. I wanted them to score as fast as they could and then they had just horrendous, just no urgency late. I don't understand what we were doing there. But then again, I felt ill for Virginia Tech fans because that was a lot. That was a lot. But you got Cam, and even when he wasn't great, he wasn't as great.
Do you think that was because of Virginia Tech, or they were a little nonchalant? That's the one thing I'm dying to go back and watch the tape on, because when I've watched,
I think it was Virginia Tech played well. But there's got to be just a little bit of they just got beat by Rutgers. They've dropped 2 games, and we're really good.
Okay.
Like, it's the human nature, Coach Corso. You don't get the same team every week. I think Virginia Tech. If you watch the All-22 and you don't see that, I'd be surprised. Because when I watched Virginia Tech, they were getting after him. They got him on the ground a bunch. That's hard to do.
No doubt.
I thought they played their butts off.
When I've watched Miami at Florida against South Florida, he's been the reason. I think you said it. He makes it look easy. But then last night, you got to step up your sense of urgency. And the ease he plays with, I thought, got them into trouble in the first half. I will go back and watch it for sure.
Okay.
But that's interesting.
All right.
We could have complete mayhem in a ACC conference game next week. Because no one from Miami knows what they're going to in Berserkeley next week. Because we throw around the terms weird, after dark, the whole thing. You got it all next week. Yeah, and
in Berkeley.
And
okay. I mean, I'm sure that they're going to embrace their their whole Cal Twitter bit. Like, this is turn it up to 100, man. This is your week.
I'm trying. You've always been the best with word. They have a level that you don't even think you could get to, and it's like another tier for them. It's gonna be awesome. That's a conference game, by the way. Coral Gables in Berkeley.
Yeah, and so is SMU, Florida State tonight. Florida State lost.
Oh,
again.
did they?
They got steamrolled. They stink. Yeah, they stink. SMU just whatever. Pony Express. I have some teams here that are undefeated that I want to acknowledge. There's a bad beat we've got from Michigan State. First half is an all timer. They fumbled at the Ohio State 16. They fumbled at the Ohio State 11. They got stopped on downs at the Ohio State 20, and then they gave up the touchdown on that one-handed catch to Jeremiah Smith late to lose the first half. They did the same thing Marshall did. They drove a bunch and they couldn't do anything with it. And Ohio State hits a ton of big plays. But hey, they went on the road in the league, and they won by.
Got a question for you,
points.
real quick. There's no substance to anything.
Yeah.
Ohio State or Alabama?
I just watched Alabama beat Georgia. I haven't seen Ohio State play anybody yet. So I mean, I just can't. I can't answer that question. Okay. I'd say Alabama just because I watched them. And you know what I noticed about this, and this is the cliche. This is where people eye roll. And this is where people, you guys are in the tank. People hit each other in SEC games different than any other thing I see. Just the amount of just dudes on the field, and it's insane to me watching Bama and Georgia play tonight. I just feel sideline to sideline, all 22. The depth of talent on the field in that game was, well, I mean, you might have seen the graphic about how many 5 stars and 4 stars, and that's why all the NFL scouts were there. Go ahead.
I just want to tell you, you're watching on TV, and the collisions and the hits you're seeing are when the ball's thrown, and I can't tell you what is going on the interior. You want to talk about physical prowess. And I made the point on game day today, I picked Alabama because, and Coach Saban's right there, and I said they have program guys on their defensive interior line that have improved. And it's Overton, it's Smith, they have 4 guys, and they were 5-star guys that didn't produce in their first couple of years, but these first 3 weeks with Coach DeBoer, they've taken another step. You saw them against Wisconsin, and you got to have multiple guys. And Georgia got their guys back for the first time this week, but that's what makes the SEC the SEC. And any guy that's been in it or watches it or sees it knows it. And tonight was just an exhibition of how many guys they do have, which is just awesome.
Yeah, I thought so. I'm keeping tabs on a game here. It's just we're talking late. We're not staying until 4 a.m. Not that we'd have to. Arizona's up 13 on Utah.
I got another game I'm watching that
keeping an
could
eye on
be
that
another 3-0 week.
Could be 3-0 again, Steve. That's great.
Yeah, we're rooting for the blue on the blue.
At least one of us is good. Okay, that's a Boise. Steve's got Boise at home.
Don't call hold.
I have some. Speaking of undefeateds,
undefeated.
Go undefeated again.
Sorry,
that would be 12-3 on the year. No, you don't have to be sorry. Gave out the fire breathers in winners. That's Trent Dilfer's team. They were the wrong side. Navy's undefeated. Impressed.
They could throw.
They handed it to Memphis, and they gave it to UAB as well. Well,
they could throw the football, which is scary.
None of us in our life. Navy. That's after Army went to Temple and rolled through them like a bad cheesesteak through a goose. The service academies doing their thing. Indiana, the Fighting Signettis. Got to acknowledge what what they've done, 5-0 for the first time in forever. Dirty Terps were tied second half, and then IU ripped off 21 straight. Their schedule is not difficult. They went out and got the guy from Ohio, right? Rourke, the quarterback.
Yeah.
They don't make mistakes. They
Very
operate
organized,
efficiently, on time. Signetti's buttoned up, man, and they're unbeaten. And I don't know how many. I mean, anybody could lose to anybody. You talk about they could be.
Do you have their schedule up?
They could be. They could. I'll pull it up right now because they play Ohio State late in the year, and I'm telling you,
they
could
Michigan
potentially. They could potentially. Indiana?
Yeah.
I don't think they do.
Oh, that would be a game.
Indiana's got
see.
Northwestern, Nebraska, Washington, Michigan State. Yes, Michigan comes to Bloomington early November. Then they have a bye. Then they go play Ohio State. Now, they'll be favored against Northwestern. Nebraska comes in. That's a big one. They'll be favored against Washington. The way they're playing, they'll be favored at Michigan State. I mean, I'm just telling you. They're impressive. Rutgers got a win. They were statistically manhandled by Washington, who missed a bunch of field goals, but they managed to get to Rutgers' schedule. Isn't that difficult either? And Duke came back from the abyss to beat Carolina. Manny Diaz's guys are 5-0.
Brotherhood.
A team no one's talking about them from the ACC. I thought the Brotherhood was just basketball, Steve. Okay, well, the football Brotherhood.
Couple things.
From Durham. Just want to acknowledge some teams that are unbeaten, like Steve and his
Terps
picks.
were my super dog today, Scott. And I had the hook. Couldn't get there. Because Michigan's another team. Then, you talk about, week to week, the whole thing. The two most intriguing teams to me, because I watched the tape 4 times. What was USC going to do after getting shellacked by Michigan up front? And what was Michigan going to do after they established themselves? And out of all this, Minnesota is the team I was most impressed with. They were left for dead. And they had a chance. And
lost by 3.
To your point.
Ski-U-Ma.
Week to week, man, these teams are so odd and different.
I want to acknowledge just hand up. I didn't see it, and I can't figure out how Notre Dame. They had 11 first downs. I guess there was a big defensive strip late, just trying to catch up on how they Louisville was unbeaten in that game. But Notre Dame got the victory there. I'm looking for some assistance, but I'm guessing you were probably
You won't understand this. People inside the Beltway will. They looked like they wore their Notre Dame of West Haven uniforms with the gold helmet, green jerseys, white pants. We'll go back and check the tape on that. Louisville wore their Fairfield Prep all whites. Yeah.
Okay, so that's a jersey breakdown. All I know is Notre Dame had 11 first downs and scored 31 points and won by 7.
Oh, well.
Steve's going to break that tape down. Perhaps more to come Tuesday. After all that UNLV conversation, quarterback, NIL, they beat Fresno 59-14. Well, okay.
Yes.
Well, you have my attention. That's that whole thing with the NIL. I know you guys discussed it on game day. I don't think people get it. I just don't think they understand when we talk about the Wild West, when we talk about the chaos that is this sport. I don't think they understand that, because then when you say it's chaos, people just yell at you and say, well, he's got a contract. Well, see, that's the thing that happens. You got 3,800 dudes in the portal. Maybe somebody that's representing the interests of a school. I'm not saying it happened at UNLV, but just make it a hypothetical. They say, listen, we got a starting spot potentially for you. We got 100 for you if you get here. We'll sort this out. You get here, we'll sort it out. In the same way, Steve, that maybe you're an athlete who plays quarterback, that you want to be a quarterback, and they recruit you and say, sure, you can come be a quarterback, and you get 2 reps in camp, and then they put you tight end or wherever they put you, and now you're there. And what are you going to do? That's kind of what can happen when it comes to NIL, because it isn't like your
There's no
it's
signing.
not like signing your letter of intent. It's not there's no uniform thing that goes on, because there's no ruling body to say we're going to do this to protect the athlete, to make sure that the athlete doesn't get screwed by a collective that doesn't have the money, or a coach that says you're going to get money that they're not authorized to say. Maybe they're just bullshitting. And then there needs to be something that protects the school so that a guy just doesn't come in and get that dough and then say, I'm in a red shirt and tap out and put themselves up for bid for more money next year, because there is free agency every single year, only in college athletics, not professional athletics, only college. And I don't think that people get truly the lawlessness that exists. Well, he should have just gotten a contract. Well, of course he should have. But the idea that every young person, and he's older, this guy was at Holy Cross, he's probably in his early 20s, but the idea that every late teens, early 20s person's getting super buttoned up legal advice and doesn't have bad actors in his ear trying to pimp him out for more, like there's so much to this that I don't think people have the vaguest idea about. And I'm for protecting the player 1,000%. You want to make sure if someone says that they're going to get that dough, that they get their money. But I think for as much conversation as there is where people say the contract, I think people will be shocked how often that doesn't happen, and how the players left without a whole lot of legal recourse because you didn't get it signed. And then there's the whole, do you quit on your team or not? And I know you guys covered that on Game Day. I don't know. I found it really interesting. The response from the squad against a decent Fresno team was to go out and win by 1 million. Just speaks to what Coach Odom's got, I guess, on his team.
There's a bunch that goes on. In our Friday morning Game Day meeting, we did 45 minutes on how we were going to narrow this down. And first of all, there is no player protection. That's what needs to happen.
None.
Correct.
That's what Coach Saban was talking about on the
Herbie's
air.
Point was, when you go to college, when you went to college, when I went to college, there was an investment view of, I'm going to college because I'm going to go here, get my 4 years in. They're not going to use me. I'm going to use them to get connections. And if I go out and I do not make the NFL, I'm going to have some place to go back home because of meetings and alumni stuff that I've met. And that's gone away, because now it's, supposed the number was $100,000. That $100,000's gone very, very quickly in today's world. And the idea that where and when this happened in a bye week after a team is 3-0, he's a transfer, there was an agreement, nothing was signed, and he doesn't get to school until July, is just everything that's wrong with it all in one entity here. But the problem is, if you said you had this, then just go sue. Like, if you're that sure about what happened, then you just sue the school and you're good. You're going to get it. But obviously there wasn't.
But if it's verbal, you can't prove it. You can't prove anything. Do you have a text? Do you have a text thread with a coach where the coach is like, "We'll take care of you"? Because, like, look, you lived it. I know just in talking to people at the highest levels in every conference all across the country, the way the game's played, and there's a lot of finessing that goes on, man, to try to figure out how to get people to school. And then if my family, people close to me had $1 for every time they heard me say, "We'll figure it out," you'd have a lot of money, because I'm a big "we'll figure it out" guy. because mostly we can figure it out. But the problem here is if you're a young person in the portal and you got a booster or a coach or an agent telling you we'll figure it out, then yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out by you writing your name down on a paper and signing it and telling me how much I'm getting and telling me the dates I'm getting my dough. That's how we're going to figure it out. But I don't know if young people always have folks representing their interests to the level that they should and are as buttoned up as they need to be, as is apparently the case in this instance. Because if you had a verbal, then just make it. Somebody's got to make sure that that's being written down. But then again, and this is hypothetical because I'm not saying that the coach or the school or a collective did it. They said they didn't. But a guy's in a portal and you don't have a starter, and you say to that guy, "All right, look, you come out here. We got a shot. And if you're our starter, we're gonna get you're $100,000. We got $100,000 for you if you're our starter." Is that a feasible thing that could have happened? I think it is. And now the guy goes out there and not just is the starter. Now they're 3-0, and he's like, "Hey, where's my dough?" Well, maybe that was said, but we didn't write it down, and we don't have 100. Now what are you going to do? And I don't know that happened, but like that could happen. Go ahead.
You're 3-0. You got a whole season. You have everything you wanted when you decided to go there. You have everything in front of you. Stay in the fight. Stay in the fight.
If somebody told me I was getting $100,000 and you haven't given me 3 yet,
you quit.
Then my fight becomes legal because that's bullshit. Would I? I wouldn't, but I'm a grown man that's just got way more sort of formed
that's my problem.
views
that's
of
my
how
problem
I would
with
do
this.
things.
You just mentioned it. You can't quit. You can't quit. Like you just said, we have months to do this. Go back and look at it. Stay in the fight. You can't quit.
Understood, but
I'm a guy that watched UNLV from week one. I've been a fan of the hire of Coach Odom. I've watched.
We've talked about him more than probably any. I don't know how many shows nationally have mentioned UNLV. We've talked about him.
I watched
like
Sluka
watching him like, wow, this is an impressive
Cross.
bunch.
I love what Odom did. He got 2 FCS quarterbacks and said, we're going to do this. And no one has done that at that level. And you have everything in front of you. We know how great that city could be. And everybody talks about the bad of the old UNLV basketball days. But, like, you could be the first ever. They haven't had a player drafted since 2010. And then you quit. And you have a 44% completion percentage. Like, stay in it, man. Embrace the journey.
I was going to say. The irony, of course, of Tark and hot tubs and whatever went on with the Rebels and a guy, and you can't find 100 for a quarterback that you supposedly said. Like, let's take what he should have done, or what we would do, or whatever, and just make it what it is, which is a case study in the problem of what this is.
Yeah. There's no
rules.
It is
mayhem and lawlessness. You need to have, in the same way that there's a letter of intent that you sign that says, I'm going here, and it's a binding thing. And this is where it gets tricky, and this is where people say, well, why don't you guys talk about it? Because it's minutia, and it's about, do they need to be employees? Is there need to be a CBA? Do you have unions? Like, who's having these conversations? And then who's in charge? You tell me, because I've asked people at the top of the food chain, and they don't know. So these are the problems let's not call them problems. These are the issues and challenges that have to be figured out, and they have to be figured out because you just need to say, if I'm coming here and the number's 100, fine. Someone is going to put their name to that, and then if I'm Sluka and they haven't given me $1, then I'm suing you. And I will quit because I'm suing you because you haven't paid me, and you said you're going to pay me. There has to be recourse to protect the athlete. Has to be. And there isn't. And this is where people out there just scream, oh, he should have had a contract. You'd be amazed how many people don't have things that are legally binding and buttoned up. There's just trust. And there's people doing their bidding out there, and then they go where they're told to go, and they just assume everything's going to work out because it's the wild, wild west. And maybe it works out, and maybe it doesn't. And maybe the reason a lot of people have been in the portal on the back end is because they got to a place and they were told they were going to get 250, and maybe they didn't get half of that. And they're like, well,
the
this is
number one
bullshit,
thing
I'm
I took
leaving.
out of this, and I'll end this here, was out of that,
Okay.
I woke up from a text from you saying this sucks. And I look into it. There's
it's a bummer.
obviously he said. And we go into our meeting Friday, and by that time it was, this will only happen at a non-Power 4. So I asked Coach Saban Friday morning, he walks in, and I said, Coach, can this happen at an SEC school? And he said, absolutely. And that's when I realized we need something. We need a plan. We need bylaws, CBA, something. And I thought of the player first. The player needs to be protected, but we also need some kind of contracts and everything.
Correct.
Exactly.
Agreed.
So we're on the same page.
That's what has to happen. And I think, but then it's
everybody.
Okay, is it the school? And again, I don't even know if people realize the NIL, like the schools get all this TV money, and there's a portion of the TV money that you can now use to pay for players. But these collectives, it's all boosters passing the hat. You're asking your boosters to do your bidding for this professional enterprise. The school should be the ones paying for this stuff. You got the money. But then there's Title IX. You guys know how that works? I mean, these are the things that nobody know. When you just say stuff on Twitter, you don't have any grasp of all the things that are involved, the layers that are involved here. But I just come back to the players should be able to make the money 1,000%. And they should be protected from these unscrupulous situations, or somebody that's in gambling, we would call it ass betting. When you call up and say, give me 100 times on the Seahawks. Maybe you had the 500, maybe you didn't. Well, you got a coach on the phone going, come, we got 100,000, and maybe you're just ass betting. You don't have that cash, but you'll figure it out. But you're not banking on him getting there and getting 3-0, and they're like, oh, man, we got to come up with it. Well, I don't have 100 grand. Like, we're strapped.
It's horrible.
Like
horrible.
This is part of it. This is part of it. And there's plenty of people that went in the portal from plenty of different classes at high-profile places where you heard, well, what happened is they were the money that was promised to them was the equivalent of ass betting. They didn't have it for him, and then the guy got there and they didn't get 250, and they're like, well, the hell with this, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
It's mayhem. But by the way, Rebs 59-14.
Kind of liked Fresno in that game too. I'm glad I didn't give them out.
So did I. I'm glad I didn't give them out. Would have been yet another loser on the pile. I can't pick a winner, and Steve can't lose. So, Boise's added more points as we've been talking. All right. Well, what do we got? Just all right. I mean, again, we can't stay until the 4 a.m. But that Utah final is worth keeping an eye on.
Yeah,
we'll have an update on that come Tuesday when we come back
Bristol.
from the Monday night
I
doubleheader.
Do.
You got anything else on the way out?
Alabama swim and dive team. Thank you very much. Out.
Oh, here we go. How'd the swim go?
Like how you do down here. Got a chance right from there.
Was it?
If you see the pictures, it's a combination of sweat, and I didn't have a towel.
I was going to say, is that why you were sweating like an animal when you were at Oats practice?
Alabama basketball. If you haven't heard, I think they're going to be kind of good this year. Unbelievable
wagon
production, presentation, and staff they have. Everything you think of when you think of a major college basketball program, they have it. Coach Oates has a policy which I was blown away by, and he prides himself on it, being a former high school coach. He has an open door policy for any high school coach player. Any high school coach and player can go watch practice any day of the week, anytime. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. They were all there. He brings them down after practice. But the one thing that stood out is he's as personable a guy as there is. And he walks over and he says, I can't not think about my past and where I am now without going on with Scott after Buffalo beat Arizona. And he talks about, and I said, you have no idea, Coach, what we have to do as ESPN, because CBS blocks everything out. You can't you can't do the interview from the court. You can't do this. We had to find a hallway, whether it was back at the team hotel. But he talks about that moment, and he started smiling. Like it was really, really cool. And I said, Coach, I did that forever with this March Madness because we always follow the games. And I'm like, all right, get out of the, trying to get in with the SIDs and knowing, hey, what time are you going to, my first question all the time was, what time are you going to be back to the hotel? And now with the FaceTime thing, that was the easiest thing to do. But he wanted to do it. He knew what it meant. And that was the first thing he said. So I just wanted to relay that. And it was really, really cool.
We're in the star making business, Steve. That's what we do. We're king makers on our show.
Yeah.
Now think about that. That
it was
a
the
cool
latest
night.
game. It was probably
100
1 in the
lifetimes
morning.
ago. Sean Miller was at it.
Yeah.
Sean was at Arizona. looked like he dove in a pool at the end of that game.
Yeah.
And Oates' Buffalo team was great that night, and they've got all sorts of different just forward-thinking analytics about their approach and how they go about it. They've also got deep pockets and a lot of talent. They got you saw it firsthand. That's they were a Final Four team a year ago, and people got it all wrong. Like,
There's
football's
still a
king
way
down
to
there,
make yourself good down
just
here.
like at Auburn, they like.
Yeah.
Well, they like being good at stuff. Most people like being good at stuff, preferable to being mediocre to garbage at stuff. And they've
a couple more.
They're good at stuff.
They're
good at.
I think we got a new top 3 meal: Chuck's Seafood here in Tuscaloosa. Incredible. Got that. Reese was able to come along.
Shout to Chuck's.
Our guy Trip over at Innisfree says hello. He misses you. Why don't you come down?
What's up, Tripper? I was there on a Halloween many years ago. That was. I've never felt older than when I just went out just to go, and I'm like, this is
Rounders and Galettes.
I have to go home.
I don't. It's the varsity. When you go to those places, it's unbelievable.
Sure. Varsity. Also, want to give a shout to Jay Greg. I hope the wedding went well. I got a picture from our guy Cashmere Keith. PGA
Did they
Tour
have a
star,
TV at the
Cashmere
wedding?
Keith.
Because that would have been brutal.
I don't know. He just sent me a picture. Picture. It was raining. He was underneath an awning. I can't. I can't. It's just I don't haven't gotten permission just to share it. But Jay Greg, seriously. I mean, I think
Jay Greg won.
Maybe you spared the dogs. I know he won because his boys just got a chuckle out of us harassing him.
If Cashmere and those guys were here for that loss, it would have been bad. That's rough.
Yeah, but if there's just to bring it full circle, Georgia is not in the business of moral victories. Not when you've won 40, how many in a row in the regular season? 42, 43. You're not in the business of moral victories. But if you could lose a game and come out of it and say, all right, we're going to be all right, I'd say it's Kirby and Georgia after tonight. And I believe that's true. I also believe that schedule is going to ask a lot of them. I'm shocked that they came out of a bye that spooked and that unprepared, because you never see that from them. You never see 15 minutes of timid football from a team that prides itself on.
I thought it was more of Alabama taking advantage of the opportunity.
But I agree with that. It was Milroe and Bama doing what they do, but they could only do that because Georgia wasn't able to answer the bell and stay on the field. A couple of big drops. 11 had a rough start to the game. Anyway, shout to Cashmere, shout to Jay Greg, shout to the dogs. That was a hell of a battle. Shout to Tuscaloosa, obviously from Stanford Steve, who was down there in it. And you go from that to your nemesis next week. Are you even going to be able to do this? I
don't know.
From
I got to
next
get
week?
off.
Or what's the travel scenario?
This taping and figure out flights, because we got Kansas City Monday night after that. You want to talk about varsity?
next week.
Maybe we got a Royal. Maybe we got a Royals.
All right, well, we'll let you get your travel.
Love to go see my man Q.
Hey, hat tip to Benetti and the Tigers that got in.
Mets haven't scored a run.
What about
since
the Let's
left.
Go Mets go optimism meter?
Not good. Double header Monday.
Low.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, what are we doing? What are we doing? This is a college football pod. Hey, you said the Alabama Hoop staff likes to listen to this. If you're still listening, guys, thank you for
they
your
were the ones that brought up the word elite. I was like, whoa, you guys are degenerates or really bored.
All right. Shout to all the really boards out there on your Sunday morning before the NFL kicks off. We'll see y'all Tuesday back here. For Stanford Steve, I'm Scott Van Pelt. It's SVPod.